Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. As you can see, my voice is not 100% back, but it's getting better every single day. I figure by Friday it'll be back. But this is something that's been bothering me over the past little bit. See, in the 1960s, the Soviet premier at the time, I think it was Khrushchev, but don't quote me on it, visited London. And he looked around at all the shops and, they all had bread, they had everything they needed. And he asked his British tour guides, how do you know how many loaves of bread that you'll need? And the British tour guide said, we don't. We produce what needs to be made and, people buy what they want. That's a perfect example of the laissez-faire nature of capitalism. You produce what you can, whatever that is. Let's just say it's these little things right here, little cups and stuff like that, and people say, oh, that's cool. Maybe you sell 1,000, maybe you sell 10,000, maybe you're the next millionaire. That's one of the risks you take with capitalism, but the rewards are potentially phenomenal. That's not what they're aiming us towards. Let's look at the smart technology. On the surface, it's hard to really be against smart technology because it sounds like it's very convenient. I mean, they've been promising us forever that they're going to have refrigerators that read through everything and tell us when we're out of eggs, tell us when we're out of milk, all sorts of magical things. I've always had a problem with this because how does my refrigerator know that I'm down on hamburger meat, but I feel like a steak today? But that's the human factor. You're never going to get rid of that. But what this is basically a very covert attempt to control us. How do you think they're controlling us? Because once they're able to monitor what we're consuming, and once they're able to streamline production, then they know exactly what to do next. They have a working model. They'll be able to predict, okay, next week we're going to need 1 million gallons of milk to feed all the people in the Greater Toronto area, and they will produce 1 million gallons of milk. But see, there's a problem, there's a recall, whatever it is, and they're not going to have the ability to leverage the extra production into feeding those people. Meanwhile, corporations like McDonald's, Burger King, whoever, who still have their ice cream machines, they're going to get their delivery. Don't you worry about them. They're going to be fine. It's people like you and I that are going to be that word that rhymes with duck that starts with an F. Faduck. I started realizing exactly how insidious this level of control over a population is. And it would make Darth Sidious proud in Star Wars. They're going to be able to figure out exactly how much each person needs to be paid, exactly how much that person needs to consume in order to keep them exactly where they are. So I was confused when I was looking at these minimum wages going up. And if you may recall, over the past couple of years, I pointed this out. In my former career as a logistician, I always have a problem with that word, I'm sorry. As a logistician, I was looking at the minimum wage salary and saying, you know what? For all the headaches that I go through, I'm not making a hell of a lot more than, no offense to people who work at McDonald's, but we're making almost the same. And if you don't add my commissions and benefits in, the gap becomes very narrow. So what's the point in busting your tail, making business contacts, and making things work when the only thing that separates you from them are sales? Now, doctors, nurses, teachers, stuff like that will always be a leg up because they nurtured their unions while everybody else was busting them. But against this, I don't know if there's an English word for it. And English is my first language, so that should tell you how scary it is. But this utter setup that's being inflicted on us is. Well, actually, there is a word for it. It's totalitarianism. See, the food companies are an oligarchy. It's like a monopoly, but it's shared between a few special people. Go up, look at the top 7 names in food. You're going to get your Nabisco, you're going to get Mars, you're going to get your Kraft, you're going to get, it's the same people year over year, Coca-Cola. Please note I'm not affiliated with any of them. I'm using this as an example. And they would love to know, are you kidding? What company would not love to know or have a very good prediction of how many units they will need to manufacture in the next year so they can downsize, right size, whatever size their staff? Or change their ingredient sourcing so they can make some more profit. And yes, that's a lot of what they do in life. They try to make their profits higher and they pay their employees less because it's good for the bottom line. No, we've got to really seriously think about it. And the measurements they have on us now would scare you. As I'm sure anybody who's listened to this channel for a long time knows, I am a multi-time author, couple-time best-selling author. And they tell me what my sales are. Yeah, that's all fine and dandy. But you know what Amazon tells me? How many pages are being read. And that's the statistic that I value most. Yes, it's nice to have sales, but I'd rather know how many pages are being read. Because I can sell you some darts, but if you're not going out and using them, I'm never going to sell you another set of darts. Look at golf people who go golfing. They're always in the market for a new set of golf clubs, for a new this. Oh, my gloves are done, I need this. It's a continuing self-fulfilling, self-driven market. And that's what they want to do with, food, beverages, etc. And right now, they have millions and millions of unused gallons of Coca-Cola. They have millions and millions of, ground beef that winds up having to go back into recycling. Remember mad cow disease? And it turned out that was because cows were being fed their deceased relatives because it was cheaper to feed them themselves than it was to give them good feed. Yeah, because you need to do something with all this stuff. And that's the upside to having this smart technology. The downside is, once they figure out exactly how much you need, it becomes very difficult to innovate. I'm not going to use the communism word because it's totalitarianism. It's an oligarchy. They control the big things, and you may be able to get in a market here. There's always black market goods. Even at the height of the Soviet Union, when the KGB was everywhere, they were still able to get blue jeans, Adidas, and track pants, all that kind of thing. But the important part is innovation going forward is going to be stifled. And for the average person, unless you're a superstar, unless you're a sales, super god, unless you're that person they can walk in and say, okay, I can turn this place around in 6 months, your services simply are not required. That's the scary part about a smart economy, is it's so smart, it actually makes sure that nobody else can get involved in the economy. It'll be a very dystopian future. I don't quite think we're going to go to Soylent Green, but the way they're introducing these Beyond Meat stuff, which I have no problem with, I think it's a decent product. And the way they're talking about 3D printed protein strands, so you can sit at home and 3D print your lunch, whether it's a meatloaf or whatever have you. I like the idea of it, but you notice one of the common things in fiction is that they say it doesn't taste as good. That's because it doesn't. And also, how is that going to hurt chefs? I mean, yes, Gordon Ramsay has given us a certain image of chefs, but most chefs are there trying to get the job done the best possible way they know how. And yeah, that's what their job is. But if you've already been given your resources for the month and you've got 2 kids, you got to make sure you can take care of those kids. That's your first priority. And if for some reason they have a batch of bad milk or something wrong with the transportation, you might not get it at all. The coming economy is going to be a very difficult one to navigate. We already say people don't eat enough vegetables, they don't eat enough fruit. Pile whatever you want in this particular category. You know what? They're right. The number of people actually getting involved in that stuff is lower and lower. Vegans and vegetarians are, they've reached their saturation of the population. That's where they're staying. But to judge from prices, it's harder to be a vegetarian than it is to be a non-vegetarian. And that's even assuming you're not buying, expensive pre-processed tofu and you can do this stuff yourself. So what we need to look out for is to start seeing when they start delivering metrics, measurables. When they start saying the average 3-person household or 3-bedroom household with 2 parents and 2 kids consumes exactly this per year, and therefore this is going to be their allotment. Now, I don't think that's going to happen in the next 5 years. We have bigger problems ahead of that. But around 2030, when Charles Schwab has his way, things get very different. Remember, smart metrics are very smart and they're out to get you. So be smart. Start figuring out what you can do now. This is very difficult in an urban area, but something like making honey. Okay, again, in an urban area, you're not going to be able to do this, but maybe if you're in a semi-farm area, this would be a worthwhile resource to have. Our crops we had set aside did not go so well this year, but we still got a little bit out of them, and they'll have a good time going forward. But if we were depending on that, we would be in trouble. And that's simply because we tried something different this year and it worked, and then it stopped working, and I don't know why. But you need to start taking care of yourself. And everybody can do this. You can have a little kitchen garden with some herbs and spices in it. And yeah, have you seen the price of spices, like real fresh spices? They're ridiculous. But these are all things that we can take under our control. And we're going to have to. Because if the smart systems start dictating what we have, well, it's not going to be good for our longevity, and it's not going to be good for our economy. So with that, I'll bring this episode to a close. We wish to thank you for joining us on the Silverlight Show. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like, share, subscribe, buy the books in the link down below. It really helps the channel out. We hope you have a fantastic day.